Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining us for today's episode of Canal Days. As always, I am your host, Carrie, along with my co-host, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Como. Our Canal Days series delves into the vast collection of historical sites throughout Massachusetts, with Robert's expertise of the local history as our personal guide. Each episode, we uncover history throughout local communities with historic houses, meaningful monuments, preeminent pivotal pioneers, and remarkable remembrance, all while uncovering some of their seminal significance. Today's episode of Canal Days will be talking about some of the highlights of the tours that Robert gives. So, out of all the churches through the River Valley that you've highlighted, are there any ones that you enjoyed the most or your audience liked more than others?
I would say that by far anything that's outdoors that is very unusual, that people always seen but never had a good explanation for. So like I give a couple bridges tours and people always wonder what's that in the water, why was this bridge even put here? Why wasn't it put somewhere else? Or is there a historical reason? Is there a social pressure reason? And so I try to go into that. In terms of presentations, people like the really good summaries, especially when they're genealogists of churches and cemeteries. But also people like to hear about one item at a time at times too. So I stress what people like.
And how about cemeteries? Are there any favorites?
All right, probably my favorite is the one in South Hadley because it took so much research. It's called the Evergreen Cemetery because the old Sahara burial ground was put into place, and it turned out not to be just the one in back of Evergreen. Some were put in at different stages for like families in the 1880s were putting their deceased family member who was in the old Saudi burial ground into Evergreen. So they'd move the whole family with stone and bodies into Evergreen. And I figured out a lot of those people. And some were moved in 1902 during the initial move into the main body of Evergreen. In 1904, they were put into the very back. And some people had their family members moved into other cemeteries in South Hadley, not just the ones I mentioned. So when you have a really good research project, I get really into it. And people in the community that have never been able to solve this were able to listen in. And I had one burial, it was called the Bowden family, and I found out that they were moved in 1903 into the Sally Falls Cemetery from the old Sally burial ground. And they're one of probably just two families that moved into that cemetery instead of Evergreen. So a good, strong topic is one that is tough at times.
And of all the parks throughout the Connecticut River Valley, which are some of the most used and offer some of the most for their communities?
The ones that are in the very center of that community probably have seen the most history for the park itself and have seen the most history for what is surrounded on the outside of it. So parks that are more around schools or are more on the outskirts of town probably don't have that as much, but there is some history still, and there is the geographic environment to consider too for those kind of parks. But the parks that are right in the center of a community, whether it's a town or a city, are the ones that have a good, strong environment to give a tour on or a presentation on. And I have a rule that I apply to every research topic, whether it's a presentation or a tour. It should be a project that when I present it, indoors or out, should take 1 hour of my time during the presentation. It should be enough material for 1 hour or more. And if I really want to put all this effort into it, I should expect that there should be at least 10 people that show up. So I try not to make it too specific so that only one person shows up and that's it. And Then the last rule is that I should make it so that it's worthwhile for myself too. And now this last rule means that it should be at least 100 years old because the title of my business is Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke. There should be at least 100 years worth of, of life's buildings around whatever I'm doing.
And stick around and we'll be right back after a few words. Are you fascinated by local history and eager to investigate the obscure treasures off the beaten path throughout the state of Massachusetts? Or maybe just seeking an unforgettable cultural activity for family and friends to enjoy? Look no further than Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke. Founded by Robert Coloon. With over a decade of experience, Robert offers captivating tours and presentations of historic sites and landmarks throughout the state. Whether you're interested in canals, cemeteries, charming churches, or more, Robert's tours provide a unique and enriching experience for all. Getting back to our episode, what are your favorite streets throughout the Connecticut River Valley, or that have the most special features along them?
Okay, a good street to look out for where I can give a tour is a street that has a lot of institutions on it or that has a lot of beautiful Victorian homes on it. Now, you're not going to find a street that has a lot of colonial homes. Colonial homes are too spread out, and I'm not going to make people walk 5 miles to see 3 colonial homes. But most of the time, if there are a lot of institutions, then that's a good tour right there, and that's a lot about what people want to hear. So a good street might be like Chicopee Street through the Willimantic neighborhood of Chicopee. It might be around Court Square on those streets. It might be High Street of Holyoke, where all those businesses are. It might be a street that's near a canal and has a lot of worker homes on it. And so I haven't mentioned that. These canals have all these places for workers to live, and a lot of those streets are bunched together, and you can make a good tour right around there. So, easy to do most of the time in cities, a little bit harder in towns, but if you stay around the original historical section, you can figure it out. For instance, Woodbridge Street in South Hadley. South Hadley's kind of small, but Woodbridge Street has a lot of beautiful homes on it, of a lot of different architectural styles, and a lot of history there.
And which reservoirs throughout the area are the nicest and that offer the most?
All right. Now I'm most interested with the reservoirs that Holyoke owns. Sure, other communities has reservoirs, and I'm going to start doing like Chicopee reservoirs next year. But consider this: Holyoke's reservoirs that are inside the boundary of Holyoke, Whiting Street Reservoir, Ashley. Whiting Street has so much history on the outside of itself. It was surrounded by the Mount Tom Range, which had a mountain park, which had golf courses, which had a house on the top for visitors. A lot of history around it. Ashley Reservoir, a lot of history right there, and what pipes were put in where, what connections were put in with other reservoirs that Holyoke owned. But Holyoke also owned reservoirs outside its boundaries. How did it make Ty-Carmody Reservoir in Southampton? Did it make it in the style that the state of Massachusetts made the Quabbin Reservoir? That is, they told the people they have to move. No, Holyoke did it very nicely. They told the people, can we buy your land and your house for this price? And every year they'd write them a letter. And at times the family said, okay, that sounds good. Or the family's just going to move anyways. And they sold it to Holyoke because they had the best offer. And they were able to acquire 20% of the land by deed of Southampton to make a nice new reservoir in a nice way. So they weren't chased after land in the Quabbin style.
And out of all the topics you do, which is your favorite and which does your audience seem to enjoy the most?
Okay, probably my favorite is anything to do with my family's life or my life, or has a really tough research topic within it, like the Precious Blood Church death. That was a strong research topic that I lot to get into. Someday I wish to go to New Bedford and do the family church of my father and his parents and his grandparents. That's one of the, probably the most beautiful church in all of Massachusetts, the St. Anthony's Church. So there's some topics I'd love to do someday. And I keep going and going. Now, people love those canals because they're so different, like I mentioned. Even, not only the power canals, but even the navigational canals. So the South Hadley Navigational Canal, I've done tours on it for 11 years now. And I hope to keep doing them. And people love to know that there was a navigational canal in South Hadley. And they're always amazed that South Hadley had the first navigational canal ever in the United States. And that was done in 1794, soon after the Revolutionary War, soon after the American Industrial Revolution happened. And they're all connected.
And thank you for listening to Canal Days and our episode on the highlights of the series and joining us on our journey through the rich history of the Connecticut River Valley. We hope you enjoyed uncovering some of the hidden and overlooked marvels and their fascinating stories that shaped our past and the state of Massachusetts. A special thanks to Robert Camus, founder of Historical Tours of Greater Holyoke, for sharing his passion and expertise with us. Remember, you can find more information about Robert's tours, book private tours, and explore the Canal Days video and podcast series at holyokecanaltour.org. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please like, comment, and share. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions for future episodes. Don't forget to keep exploring and discovering the history that is hidden in plain sight all around us. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to tune in to our next episode of Canal Days and log on to holyokecanaltour.org. Until next time.